Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the social climbing series. So, whenever I talk about social climbing, what I'm talking about is building leverage for yourself. I'm talking about privilege stacking. I'm talking about going from like lower class to middle class or middle class to upper middle class. Maybe attracting the exact type of friendships you've always wanted, attracting a relationship you've always wanted if you're interested in that. And when I say relationship, I'm not just talking about romantic. This could be a business relationship. It could be for those of you, I don't know if you're a sugar baby, whatever you guys are trying to do. Okay. So social climbing has a different, it looks different for everyone. But I was recording an episode on fitness because one of the pretty girls asked like how to be fit and like look cute and stuff like that. And it made me think about how I do it. And I realized that I have two different types of fitness goals. So one of my fitness goals is like actual fitness. So, building strength, being healthy or whatever. And then I also do use fitness as a social climbing tool. So the way that I use fitness is it has helped me to make new friends. It has helped me to like find exotical friends. It helped me to find leveled up women to hang out with. So now my whole entire social life is like really good. It also helped me to find business opportunities like in real life, ways to gain an income and stuff because a lot of women that I have met at the gym or like at different fitness groups and stuff, a lot of those women have been able to connect me to other people and like it's a whole networking thing. So like there's a whole networking side of it. It has also helped me to live more of a soft life because when I do different gym memberships like the YMCA, I've talked about that before. When I was living in the hood, I joined a YMCA and the YMCA was in the nicest part of town. So it helped me in terms of social climbing because number one, I was inspired every time I went to the gym. And then I'm getting in shape. And then I'm meeting people who actually live in that area. And then, like, I'm getting used to being in a nicer area. I'm kind of getting to know the lay of the land. Also, for those of you who are looking for jobs, I remember when I used to drive to a certain walking trail, that was actually using fitness to social climb because on that walking trail, I wanted a new job at the time. And by the way, some of the best jobs are not on Indeed. So I really wish somebody would have told me that. Like I've never heard any content creators talk about that. But anyway, some of the best jobs are not high up on the algorithm on Indeed. So what I also used to do, and I forgot to talk about this, was when I was walking on that trail in the nicest part of town, I was looking at the corporate buildings because it was like right in the center of the city. So they had lots of tall buildings down there. Like I would see a lot of business people. They'd be walking on the trail, but they would have on like high heels and like a cute suit or whatever. So I actually started writing down in my phone, like, okay, that's this black building. It is XYZ company. So I would look at all the signs around me and stuff. And then if I saw a sign that said like Johnson Marketing or whatever it was, I would put that in my phone and then I would go back home and then type that into Google and try to see if they had any job openings there. And I told you guys that was how I got, I wasn't an accountant yet, but I think it was my second finance job. So not the very first one, but it was like the second or third finance job. That is how I found that job that was within walking distance of my new apartment that I got in the nicest part of town. So that's an example of social climbing. I went from being poor, and then I ended up moving and went from being a broke divorcee to getting my first good job as like working in finance. I was not an accountant yet, but it was a very good title. It was like a finance coordinator or something similar. It was not quite an accountant, but like it was right. I would say it's right there, like very similar to being in accounting. So a part of how I even found that job was because when I used to take my walks down there, I was scoping out the different buildings and like, what companies are over here? Can I work for one of these companies? I also used to do the same thing with apartments as well. And I actually did do that in that neighborhood. So sometimes the cheaper apartments in the nicer neighborhoods, they're not the most popular apartment. So it may not be the tallest building in that neighborhood. It might be a little obscure townhome, or you might be renting out just from a singular landlord as opposed to you live in this massive apartment building. So that's another example of me using fitness as a social climbing tool because for my fitness journey, I was walking on the trails and stuff, or I was doing what I call a city walk. So when I say a city walk, what I mean is I'm going on a walk, but it's in the city instead of like on a trail or walking on a track. I'm actually walking in the middle of, the best zip code in town or whatever. So I used to do that, and I would write down the buildings that I wanted to maybe move to as far as apartments. So then I could go back and research, like, okay, how much does it cost? That's a part of how I found a good deal. I also found at that time, I found an apartment finding agency. So I had never heard of apartment finders until I was damn near 30 years old because I just didn't know about them. But I would have never known that that existed had I not gone on a walk and actually walked past a physical building that said like so and so apartment finding company. So that's another example of me using fitness as a social climbing tool. So that's what I mean when I say social climbing. I think a lot of people, when they think of social climbing, they're automatically thinking about men. No, I have decentered men. So my social climbing journey, it's not revolving around getting picked by a man. Part of my journey is about being observant, figuring out like, okay, this is the nicest zip code. I know that I want to live here eventually. So like, what companies are here? What grocery store is here? You know what I used to do? I don't know if I talked about this on the YouTube channel, but when I was going on a walk, I would walk to the Trader Joe's, which I could not afford at that time. I couldn't afford to shop at Trader Joe's yet because I was still living in the hood. So I walked into the Trader Joe's. I had always perceived Trader Joe's as being super expensive because I had a stereotype and it was based on my upbringing. So when I was growing up, my family didn't shop at Trader Joe's. They shopped more at like the normal grocery stores or like, the stores where you buy the bulk items like Costco and stuff like that. So I didn't grow up on Trader Joe's, and all of the richest kids in my school, they always had these really cool snacks at lunch, and I'd be like, "Where did you get that from? Like that's so good. Like where did you get that trail mix from? Where did you get this from?" And they would always say, "Oh, I got it from Trader Joe's." And so I had this stereotype that Trader Joe's is like the cool grocery store that like all the rich kids shop at. Because I told you guys I grew up in a wealthy environment, but I'm not wealthy. Like my family, I'm not a millionaire or anything like that. So I was middle class. But I had a stereotype of Trader Joe's. So when I used to go on a walk in this nice part of town, there was a Trader Joe's there. And so, yes, I would walk up and down that street. I would get my little 5 miles in, my little 10,000 steps. And I had my little cute ponytail. I had my baggy crop top on because that was when I was a little bit more on the chunky side. I mean, I probably shouldn't call it chunky. I was Meg the Stallion size at my absolute biggest. So Meg the Stallion, I know most people don't consider her fat, but in my view, just based on where I was coming from, imagine going from Zendaya's body size to like Meg the Stallion. It's still a big difference. But I would have on my little baggy crop top with my little leggings or whatever, and I walked to Trader Joe's, and I used to walk in the Trader Joe's and just pretend like I was shopping there. I would just look around. But then as I started to look around, I realized, wait a minute, their prices are not high. They don't have the highest prices. A lot of their stuff is actually very cheap. The only difference between Trader Joe's versus like a bulk grocery store is that it's more so, I would say Trader Joe's caters to people who live alone or like people who eat small serving sizes. So yeah, it's $3 for like a small thing of frozen vegetables. But if you are just one person and that little bag of vegetables is going to last a long time. If you're just living by yourself, you don't really shop as much at bulk food places because you're not eating a gallon of vegetables. You don't need a big giant thing of milk. You don't need like 6 dozen eggs or whatever because it's going to take you a long time to eat that. So once I actually went into the Trader Joe's, I realized that their prices were not as unattainable as I had originally thought. But I would have never known that had I not gone on my walk, used fitness as a social climbing tool, explored the neighborhood. So I told you guys I started off just walking on the trail, but then as I got more familiar with the trail, I was like, okay, let me veer off to the side. There's a neighborhood right over here on the side. Let me walk in this neighborhood. Okay, let me see if I can do a circle around this neighborhood. So that's how I discovered like the Trader Joe's and the my favorite coffee shop at the time. So with the Trader Joe's, I discovered that it was cheaper. And then sometimes if I was really on my shit with my money, sometimes I would budget like $5 so that I could go to Trader Joe's and get an alkaline water. which was around $2 for like a big thing of water. So I do my walk. I would walk about 2.5 miles or so on the trail, and then it's like, okay, I can get my little alkaline water. So that's an example of social climbing. I was gaining information. I was basically gaining like financial information, and I was able to budget. I was able to determine that, oh, wait, it's actually not as far outside of my budget as I thought. And so it was kind of like I was getting new ideas. I started to kind of keep up a little bit more with like the different health products as well. So sometimes I'd go to Trader Joe's and I would just walk up and down their aisle. So I remember looking at the different types of water. They had like the alkaline water, they had the sparkling water. I also remember looking at their frozen aisle, and then it helped me to also get ideas for food that I can make at home that was also like healthy. So that's another form of social climbing because I'm I have more access to creative recipes that can help me to meet my body goals, and we all know that thin privilege is a thing. So do you see what I mean when I say utilizing fitness as a way to social climb? So when I first started walking, that wasn't my goal, but it ended up just kind of happening naturally. So I ended up just kind of social climbing. And I would have never had any of those ideas, would have never known about that company that I ended up working at, would have never known about the buildings over there, would have never discovered the coffee shop over there, would have never really got into like different types of alkaline waters and all these health food products had I not started off by just doing my fitness goal. Okay, so that's one example of social climbing. It's if you go on a walk in a nice neighborhood, or like in my case, I also went to the YMCA. I signed up for the YMCA that was in the nice neighborhood because I wanted to be in the environment of wealth. So that's an example, like signing up for a gym or a yoga studio, a Pilates studio, whatever, in your favorite part of town. Whatever part of town makes you feel the most rich and luxurious, you are technically social climbing because you're accessing what I call the soft life. So if the soft life for you, if it means you get to go to the YMCA out in Beverly Hills or whatever, then that's you won. You succeeded because you're not living this hard life where you're just in survival mode. No, you get to go to a nice clean, like when I first went to the YMCA, I was so like in love. I was obsessed with the YMCA. I will forever promote the YMCA, okay? So I would say if you are used to only being able to go to like these super ghetto gyms, like in my case, I was used to either the college gym, which is just like basic, or like my college dorm, or I was used to like my hood apartment at the time where I didn't even want to go to their gym. First of all, I saw their gym. I did not like it. They only had a couple of ellipticals. So it was very similar. My lifestyle was still very similar to when I was in college, where it's like, okay, I don't even have access to a super nice gym. And like the nice gym when I was in college, they had these weird hours because it was based on like the students. So like the students worked at the gym or whatever, and then like it wasn't 24-hour, and then on the weekends it was only open for certain times. So I wasn't used to living this soft life where I could go to the gym all the way until 9 p.m. The gym's open until 10 p.m. Oh my God, I could go to the gym at 5 a.m. That was a life upgrade for me at the time. So that's an example of social climbing. It's maybe getting a gym membership somewhere, or if you don't want a gym membership, maybe you're not a gym person, just going on a walk somewhere, going on a bike ride somewhere nice. And then I told you guys I started discovering the coffee shops. So then that became a part of my walking thing. That became a part of my fitness journey. Like, okay, next time I'm going to take a walk to Johnny's European coffee shop in the middle of town in my favorite neighborhood. And, in order to walk there, I'm going to park 5 miles away. And I know the way to get there. I'm going to take my little shortcut on the trail, and then I'm going to veer off to the left. So it started becoming this fun adventure. And then it's like, I don't realize that I'm getting in my 10,000 steps. My blood circulation is healthy. So it's helping my skin to heal up. It's helping my hair grow and all this other stuff. And then I discovered my favorite coffee shops. And now I've got motivation to also go there. I couldn't always afford to buy something at the coffee shop. I remember actually there was one time, so I used to walk to my favorite coffee shop. I couldn't afford to get anything, so what I would do is just go into the coffee shop and I would just go to the bathroom. I would just go in there. I would pretend like I was looking around. Well, I actually would look around at like their healthy ice cream. Side note, I did discover my favorite ice cream at this fancy coffee shop. So a lot of people, they talk so much shit about coffee shops. I'm like, no, you guys are monocultural. When you think of coffee shops, you're thinking of Starbucks. That's why. You didn't grow up around coffee. You're not around a lot of coffee drinkers. So like the types of coffee shops I've been in, like this one that I used to walk to, it wasn't just a coffee shop. They had a wine cellar, they had a bar, they had people that would go in there and like read books and stuff like that. So think of a coffee shop slash bar, but then it also had like a convenience store in there. And then they also had like, okay, so you know how Barnes and Noble is, and you know how they have the Starbucks in the Barnes and Noble. So I've been to coffee shops that are like that, except it's not a Starbucks. And then it's not inside of a Barnes and Noble, but maybe it's connected to a plaza, or maybe it's in the middle of a plaza. Maybe it's in the middle of a corporate building. Maybe it's across the street from all of the brunch spots or whatever. So that's what this coffee shop was. So I was able to also discover a lot of healthy food brands and stuff. That's also where I discovered my favorite ice cream. And I remember when I first saw that ice cream in that coffee shop, I was like, who is going to buy a small pint of ice cream for $10? That's ridiculous. Like at the time, I was like, that is so expensive. Why would someone pay $10 for an ice cream when I can get a giant gallon for like $5? So I didn't always buy things there. But whenever I did have my budget of like $5, because remember, I still lived in the hood at this time. So no, I couldn't afford to just walk every day, spend $5 every day, or spend $20 every day. No. So whenever I did have money, I remember I got so excited because right across the street from the fancy, expensive coffee shop, they opened a brunch spot. It was like this breakfast. I guess, yeah, I would call it a brunch spot. I don't know what else to call it. It was like a fancy diner. And it was like, it was halfway outside, and then it had multiple levels of like patio seating and like these hanging, you know, like the fairy lights. Okay, so think of like if you're walking down the streets of Paris, or like if you're walking in Italy. Think of the stereotypical movie where it's like they're in Paris. Think of those types of coffee shops and stuff. That's literally how this street looked. So they had opened a new brunch type of place, with the hanging lights and everything. And it was so fancy and so beautiful with this multi-tier patio seating. And I was like, oh my God, that place is so pretty. And I remember one day I actually walked there, and then I discovered that their coffee, you could get their iced coffee for less than $5. And then like you could get, like, there was a nice guy that worked there. He worked at the little bar area inside of there. And then he was like, oh, I can put some syrup in it, like some sugar or whatever in there, like free of charge. And so I remember one day I walked there and I sat down just by myself at that little coffee shop. And I felt so happy because I was like, wow, I finally get to like sit here and like actually be a person that's like at one of the restaurants. So instead of me walking and wishing that I could like have the money to be able to afford this, no, now I've discovered a place across the street that is slightly cheaper than the other coffee shop. So that's an example of like, it's kind of like a form of social climbing. You're learning your environment. You're learning how to navigate that environment. You're learning about all the good deals and stuff. A part of why people do window shopping is because they're trying to figure out which store has the best deals. You can't find everything online. I know you're a millennial. I know you're Gen Z. And you think that everything is on the internet, and you believe everything on the internet. I used to believe everything on the internet until I became the subject of topics on the internet. I used to believe everything I would watch on YouTube until people started trying to dox me or whatever. Then they're saying all this crazy shit, and people are actually believing it. I'm like, oh my God, the internet is crazy. So I have a different view of the internet now, ever since I've become the subject of conversation on the internet. Just seeing how people will say the most outlandish things. They'll have nothing to back it up, and they're doing it just so they can like get views or subscribers or whatever. But anyway, that's a side note. But a part of social climbing is you're not relying on the internet. You get to actually be there. There's a difference between Googling Paris, France, and actually going to Paris, France. There's a difference between Googling Hollywood or going to this mansion and actually setting foot in that mansion. So that's an example of like social climbing. It's like you're manifesting in a way. It's kind of like you're manifesting this new lifestyle for yourself over time without realizing it. So that's another example of how fitness, going on my walks, helped me to manifest because I was exploring my, well, it wasn't my neighborhood, but like after I would drive 40 minutes to get there, I was exploring the neighborhood. So it got to the point where after about, I think a year, yeah, I was in the hood for like a year. So after about 6 months of me continuously going on this walk, and I would do all these different routes each time, I got to explore within like a 3 mile radius of my favorite neighborhood. So then I realized, wait a minute, it's not just this neighborhood. I also like the other neighborhood next to it. So then the next time I was like, okay, let me go up here. Then I discovered that there was water over there. They had like this man made pond over there. They had a whole other park over there, like with swings and everything. And then that was also where I saw other girls like walking and running. And then I discovered they had a 7-Eleven over there. And I was like, oh my God, this is the nicest 7-Eleven. I've never seen a 7-Eleven that is actually nice and it's actually like in a luxury area. I've never seen that in my life. Like to this day, I have still never seen that. So I remember once I discovered the 7-Eleven, then I was like, okay, now if I want to go on a walk and if I have my extra $5, then I can just walk to the 7-Eleven and I can get like a Gatorade or something below $5 if I want to. Like if I want to be really cheap, I can just do something like that. So it's like I was learning all the different neighborhoods. I was learning how to navigate. Then I discovered that they had a library over there. Libraries oftentimes are free. You can just go in there, you can get a library card, you can like check out books and stuff. So it became the whole thing. It was like I was tapping into a different culture. I was learning about a new culture in the city that I lived in. So even though I was in my dream city, I was not in my dream neighborhood because I was right at the edge. You know, I was like 40 minutes out basically. um, but yeah, I got to like learn a lot. So that's another example of social climbing. And it's decentered for men. Like there was no man that told me, oh, hey, baby, let me take you over here. No, I didn't have to wait for a guy to ask me on a date and then I got to go to that part of town. No, I just learned it on my own by like exploring. Another way that I ended up social climbing using fitness was joining groups. So, like when I moved to a new city, that was when I discovered, well, in the city that I live in now, they have a lot of different like outdoor fitness classes. So I call them fitness groups because that's kind of what it is. And that was my way of making new friends. So that was also a way of social climbing because, you know, I went to the class, I went to this little CrossFit class. It's like an outdoor one and it was at the local park. And that park was about, it was walking distance for me, maybe about 2 miles. I can walk 2 miles. For some people, maybe that's a little far. But yeah, I would walk to this park. I would do that little outdoor fitness class. And that was how I made my first friend in the city. And then I told you, my friend, she started inviting me out. So we would go out to like little bars and stuff. And then that was how I like started to get into kind of exploring like the nightlife of the city, I guess. It wasn't clubbing. It was more so like sports bars. Think of that sort of thing. But yeah, that's a form of social climbing because I wouldn't have had any friends had I not gone to these outdoor fitness classes or same thing with going to the gym. I would have not made those friends that I had. Like when I was poor, when I was like broke, I worked at the mall. And so I didn't want to just only have friends that work at the mall. That was not, I didn't want my life to revolve around the mall. So it's like, oh, I work at the mall. The friends I have in this city, all of them also work at the mall. No, I wanted to diversify my friend group. So going to like the YMCA or going to like the gym and stuff in these nicer areas and then making friends with girls in Zumba class and stuff, it was a good way to be around women who are leveling up and also meeting women who have been in the city longer than me who are more knowledgeable than me. So they know more about the job market or the opportunities or like how to make money or like they can introduce me to different opportunities and stuff that I didn't have access to before because I'm a newbie to the city. So everywhere you go, every time you level up, remember, you're going from quote unquote the top to the bottom, if that makes sense, because now you're a newbie in LA. So you might have been an expert when you were in Chicago, but now you just moved to LA yesterday, so you don't know everything about LA. You're new here. So it's like you're a newbie in LA, you're a newbie in that neighborhood you're in. You are a newbie at that gym. So you don't know all the resources that that gym has to offer. You don't know the most crowded times of the gym and then like the least crowded times and when all the creepy guys are going to be there and then when it's more safe for you to go. You don't know all of that information. So it's like no matter what, you're always in a phase of learning. But yeah, that was another way that I basically social climbed using fitness. It was one of the main ways. Actually, now that I think of it, a lot of my friends, I have a lot of friends that came from different fitness things. Like it could have been a fitness group or like a certain gym, a certain class, like yoga, Pilates, whatever. Um, so yeah, making friends. And then also, I did tell you guys, I did meet my ex at the time. I did meet him from a fitness group. So he was obviously my type. He was also a biracial African American, professional or whatever. So I also met him even through fitness. So that's three examples just right off the bat of how I was able to kind of like use that. And I didn't even do it on purpose, but it just ended up happening. It was a form of like social climbing because I went from being isolated or not knowing anything about the nice neighborhood or like not being used to being in that part of town to now I'm an expert about the nice part of town. Now I can get all around there. I know how to walk to different places. I know all the shortcuts. I know where it's safe to ride a bike, where it's not safe to ride a bike. So I used to like, I got into longboarding. I'm not good at it or anything, but it's like I knew where to do the longboarding and where not to do it because I discovered this park that I hadn't, if I hadn't been walking, I wouldn't have seen that park. But it's like I discovered this little park. So then I could go practice my little longboarding at the park. And then they had a basketball court over there too. So if I wanted to, I could like play basketball or something. So I just feel like it enhances your lifestyle when you take advantage of everything. Oh, and another thing too, when I was walking, so there was one particular area. I think I talked about it before actually with social climbing when it comes to the male gaze. I remember whenever I would walk over by this particular university, it happened to be a Christian university, but a lot of people went there for grad school. They had a lot of really good programs there and stuff for graduates. So whenever I was going on my walks, this was all a part of me just exploring. I just wanted to go to the nice part of town. I didn't know that the nicest part of town happened to be where this university was, but for whatever reason, whenever I would go over there, that is where I would get a lot of like male attention or whatever. And like I said, your beauty, that's another thing. You start to realize where your beauty is the most appreciated. When I was in the ghetto, my type of beauty was associated with being bougie, being stuck up, maybe having more money than other people. So I would attract a lot of beggars. I would have a lot of crackhead women walking up to me. Excuse me, ma'am, can you give me money? Do you have 50 cents? They would always walk up to me because they would see my beauty as, let me take something from her. Same thing with the men. I want to take something from her. Let me try to catcall her. Let me try to follow her. But when I was in the nice area, it was more like I look up to her. Like when it comes to the women, they treated me more like, oh, she's pretty. I want to look like her. Like, how does she do her hair? I'm going to compliment her. Like, people would just compliment me as opposed to following me like a psycho and then begging for money. So it's a totally different culture. So that's another example of social climbing and also having a different experience, even when it comes to something like beauty. Oh, and then when I was walking over by that university, I guess it's a very walkable, like it's a lot of people are walking over there. And again, I'm a nerd. I love intellectuals. I'm an intellectual myself. Even when it comes to my aesthetic and my style and stuff, I do have a little bit of like this nerdiness. Like, even when it comes to my fitness clothes, I wear very nerdy fitness clothes. So think of like the neon headbands and like I get very into it. Like I'm ready to do my workout, okay? So when it comes to weightlifting, when I used to do weights, I would have the little gloves, the little weightlifting gloves. So it's like I would have every accessory. That's why I say I'm like nerdy because I would have every accessory you could think of, like the sweatbands, the wristbands, the ankle weights, like the weightlifting gloves. If I was doing yoga, I had like my specific yoga mat and a certain bag and then like a matching water bottle to the back. So I have a whole aesthetic that I just naturally embody. But whenever I walk over by the university, I noticed I'd get a lot of male attention just walking down the street, but it was totally different than when I was in the hood. So for example, when I walked over by that university in that nice neighborhood, for whatever reason, there was always an MLS guy who happened to like try to talk to me, and they were way more normal, basically. They were more normal, and also they looked more like my aesthetic as opposed to kind of this gangster, kind of this hip hop type of vibe. No, they would look more like how think of like, I don't know why I always use Obama as an example. He's just the first example that comes to mind, but more of a nerdy type. So like he'd be wearing a button-up shirt or something, and then he might be like, "Oh, you're really beautiful," or like, "Where are you going?" or something. I don't know, just something random and like a normal conversation as opposed to, "Hey, baby, nice ass," or something crazy. So that's another example of like social climbing. So whether I realized it or not, I was technically social climbing. So yeah, even when it comes to interactions with like the male gaze, that was how I like met my ex at the time, even when I was going on my walks, because I was just naturally looking cute. And you know what my routine was? So this is before this YouTube channel existed. But I would always listen to Sheer 7 whenever I was going on my walks. And she would always be talking about like leveling up and like looking good and like not settling for dusties and staying out of dusty areas and stuff. So I loved listening to her live streams and stuff while I was walking. And plus, she stays on there for hella long. I can't do it. I don't know how these other content creators, I don't know how they can just sit there for like 2 hours. I'm like, first of all, I have to pee, okay? I need to drink water. I need to eat my snack. So how am I going to sit on a live stream for like 2 hours and I can't get up? That's part of the reason that I don't really live stream that much, because I'm like, I can't just sit still and like not move for 2 hours. Anyway, but she was one of the only creators that made level up content, like long form level up content. So it always kept me entertained while I was going on my walks. So I would always, that was my routine. I would listen to like her content. And then I would just go on my walks with my little cute nerdy outfit on. I was always experimenting with like different ponytails, like doing my ponytail differently or wearing my hair in a high bun or whatever it is I was trying to do. And then same thing with my outfits, because even when I was like more chunky, I remember I had this olive green. So this is right after the point where I had the rashes and stuff. So my skin still didn't look completely normal. I would say it looked better, but my skin still had a dullness about it. So I couldn't wear the same colors that I normally did. Like the colors that I used to wear, they became kind of too bright, or kind of like they would overpower my skin tone, or they would kind of draw attention to the dullness in my skin tone. So I remember olive was like one of my best colors at the time, because olive, it had kind of this grayish tone, like this grayish undertone that would match the grayish undertone of my rashes that were still healing, like underneath my skin. So I still looked cute with my olive outfit on. So I remember I had this olive crop top, and it was like a size large, I think. It was a size large crop top, and then I had these army print leggings, and like my whole outfit was matching. I was kind of like this army Barbie, and my shoes, they also matched like the leggings and the pants. And then I would do a little bit of like a tiny bit of olive eyeshadow or something. So then I kind of looked like this army fatigue Barbie or something. I don't know. It was like a whole thing. So that's another example of me like kind of social climbing in a way, because I also got to experience the culture of being in an academic area or like a nice area. That was a part of how I discovered that that's where I do well. Like even when it comes to college, I actually love talking about college. I am still pro HBCU. I am still pro education. A lot of people, they tend to equate blackness to ghetto. I don't believe that, because I can tell you, as a person who has mainly been around black excellence culture, every aspect of blackness is not ghetto. So I have no problem with black excellence culture. So blackness without the inferiority complex, that's the type of blackness that I like or whatever. But yeah, so I also got to learn how different people perceive me in different environments. And then another way that I used fitness was, I told you guys I would try out different makeup looks, just random makeup looks when I'm going hiking or going on these walks, because it's a very low stakes way of trying out something new. Same thing with hair extensions. If I've never tried clip-ins, like when I first started doing clip-ins, it was when I first started wearing them. I told you guys I didn't really get into that kind of stuff until I was around 28. So it was very late for me, like 20, 28, 29. That was when I first started getting into that stuff. So I remember I had these cheap synthetic clip-ins. They were like, what, $20 or something. And I didn't know how to do them yet. So I would experiment with the different clip-ins, and I would just wear the clip-in hairstyle on my walk. So just in case, because I didn't know, I was like, hey, what if these fall out? I don't know. Like I've seen the little memes and stuff where it shows like people's hair falling out, or like their hair is just on the ground when they're walking. So I was like, look, just in case anything bad happens, at least I'm just walking on a trail. Nobody knows me here. I don't even live in this area. So I can just go home just in case I embarrass myself. But I noticed people would be looking over at me doing double takes or whatever. So that's another example of being able to utilize a certain environment to do a social experiment. So with me, I tend to social experiment with my aesthetic the most because I have a fluid beauty standard. So it's actually fun for me to experiment with my own beauty. For other people, maybe it's not beauty, it could be something else. But yeah, that was another form of social climbing because then I realized, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so this looks really good on me. Okay, so the Ariana Grande ponytail. This is really, this is goals right here. This is a cute outfit. Okay, so people, they always compliment me when I'm wearing the matching colors from head to toe. Whenever my leggings match my top, that's when other girls on the trail walking past me, they'll be like, oh, you look so cute. Oh, I like your outfit. And then also it helped me to learn different flirting styles as well because this is back before I had a type. So I didn't have a type my whole life all the way up until after I started this YouTube channel. Actually, even when I had this YouTube channel, I still didn't have a type until about maybe 2 years ago. Like right around the time where I met my ex, that was when I did my very first social experiment with dating. And then I realized that I do have a type, which was MLS men, because at the time that I was dating my ex, I ended up picking him. And I noticed that was when I had a little roster or whatever. So there were a lot of guys trying to talk to me. That was when I was dating MLS men as well as non-black men. So I would say the only group that I wasn't dating was unambiguous, dark-skinned, black, monoracial men. And it wasn't because of anything like racist. It was more so because they just didn't make it. They didn't make it into my dating pool. So I would still have like little crushes or little like, I would flirt with them and they would flirt with me. But I noticed with the unambiguous guys, the flirting never turned into anything. So that was the only reason they were eliminated. So I didn't have a type at all. I didn't exclude anybody from my dating pool, and I also didn't favor anyone from my dating pool. But with that social experiment, that was how I discovered, oh, wait, I do actually have a type because whenever it's an MLS nerdy guy, I was more excited, I noticed, like for the date or like, I was more excited when he texted me versus another guy that was like an Indian guy or something. So that's also an example of kind of like social climbing in a way because I was learning about myself and I was learning about how I'm perceived. I was also learning about what I like just by being in new environments. And that was based on fitness because, like I said, with that ex, I ended up meeting him at a fitness group. So those are just some examples of how fitness can be used as a social climbing tool. Another thing that you can do as well is take pictures. If you are a social media influencer or you're, I don't know, on a dating app or something, or if you need photos for whatever reason, if you want to have good photos, well, your fitness, like a fitness setting, that's a great time to take photos because your body's looking good. You're probably wearing a cute outfit, or maybe you can try doing that. You can experiment like, okay, what type of fitness outfit looks best on me? Shorts, they have different fitness outfits for different body types. So it's like, do you look best in a baggy crop top with some leggings? Do you look best in a sports bra with leggings? Do you look good in leggings or do you look better in shorts? Like they have the biker shorts, they have kind of the booty shorts. So taking photos, you could also take progress photos. That's another form of social climbing because you're tracking your fitness progress. You're tracking your weight loss progress. Also, if you're doing your fitness outside, well, the lighting is really good. Whether it's a cloudy day, whether it's a sunny day, I look better in the shade. I look better in the clouds as well, as opposed to a sunny day. But you can figure out good lighting for your photos. You could take pictures with like a grassy background or like the trees in the background and stuff. So there are just so many like random ways that fitness has helped me to social climb because I get to see myself in a different light. Oh, another thing I was going to say too was the flirting style. Whenever I was going on walks, believe it or not, that's actually a very common place that men want to talk to women. When I say it's a common place for men to talk to you, what I mean is non-black men. So I have never been, well, actually, no, that's not true. I was going to say I've never been hit on by an unambiguous guy on a trail, but actually I have, but it's really rare. I've never been hit on, I don't think I've been hit on by an unambiguous African American man. So like if I'm on a trail, if an unambiguous guy walks up to me, I've noticed number one, it's very rare. But number two, usually he's not African American. He's something else, like Nigerian or Haitian or whatever. But generally speaking, I would say trails are where a lot of MLS or non-black, especially white men, would try to talk to me and stuff. Usually, if it was a white guy, he would let his dog walk up to me, which is very annoying, but whatever. He would let his dog walk up to me. He would stop because he wants me. He thinks I'm gonna like bend over and pet his dog and be like, "Oh, what breed is she? Oh my God, she's so cute. What's her name? Oh yeah, my brother has a dog." He uses it as a conversation starter. I didn't learn that until walking. Doing my fitness journey taught me that. So it's almost like it's a good opportunity for people watching as well. So if you want to be a creepy article like me and you want to do people watching, I love people watching. I love watching people's behaviors. I love watching people's reactions, whether it's to me or just in general. Yeah, that was something that I liked doing. So another thing I noticed too when I used to walk outside on that trail a lot was a lot of the black women, unfortunately, would give me more dirty looks, whereas a lot of the non-black women, they would look at me like I could tell they were admiring me. So it's like the way that the black culture reacts to admiration of someone is different than how a non-black person reacts to someone who's of a different race, if that makes sense. And I learned that just by examining facial expressions over the course of like 6 months. So it's like if I know I look cute, and I feel like part of it is because the women who are black, I'm their representation, so they feel more proximity to me, which makes sense. So it's more like a threatening rivalry thing, or maybe like this token mindset, like, oh, there can only be one cute black girl on the trail, or only one cute MLS girl, whatever. So I'm not quite sure, but yeah, that's another example of social climbing because you're gathering intel, and all of that happened just by something as simple as walking, doing fitness stuff. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.